she's supposed to be all about innovation, right? In the more you dig into the Palantir story, and she's supposed to have this amazing team of these researchers and whatnot, right? The more you dig into Palantir, the more you go down that rabbit hole and you realize, oh my gosh, their product's amazing. Like, you listen to people in the industry and you're like, dude, this is huge. And so for her to sell out of that stock never made sense. And you could say, well, it was losing money. And so that's why she sold. She's the the queen of buying companies that lose money. So I was just like, when she sold that, I was just baffled. I was like, why would you do that? It's a growth company that has an amazing product, a crazy opportunity at the cross sections of data and artificial intelligence. And it's just such a perfect Cathie Wood stock. For her to sell was just kind of like baffling. Now, let me say this because I know there's probably a lot of different opinions. I think it's better we have her on our team for the Palantir Bulls than not have her on our team.
Why?
So she's still a subject of conversation. She brings a lot of attention. And so from the stock price perspective, that's one way of looking at it, right? She's going to bring a lot more attention to the stock price. She goes on CNBC and Bloomberg, and people love to talk about Palantir. So I'm sure, especially if she builds this out into a position where she's got tens of millions of shares, which is a possibility.
Which is she going to do? She's probably going to do.
Yeah. There's going to be a lot of people talking about it, and they're going to want to talk to her, and they're going to have her on CNBC and Bloomberg. And, hey, saw you bought Palantir. What's your thoughts around this? Alex Carr, blah, 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 like they used to do with Elon Musk, right? It's not to that Tesla level, but it's going to be talked about. And at the end of the day, those finance channels, CNBC and Bloomberg, all that stuff, right, that she'll go on and talk, a lot of executives watch those channels, a lot of high net worth individuals that will then look into Palantir maybe a little deeper. And if there's one issue we've had with Palantir, it's sales and marketing, getting the name out there more. What is this Palantir company? What do they do? How can they help my business? Just having her be a subject of conversation that pops up everywhere, I think it's a good thing rather than a bad thing. So I'm happy to have her as a shareholder again. And I hope they ask her about it, and I hope she talks a lot about it and brings more attention to what Palantir's product is, why it's so great. And I hope she'll be able to convey that in messaging that's pretty short, because as you guys know, when, for CNBC, Bloomberg, those channels, when they ask about a stock, like they don't want you to talk about it for 30 minutes. They want you to talk about it for 30 seconds. And so she's going to have to somehow convey why Palantir's value proposition is amazing in that 30 seconds. And then hopefully executives will take notice and say, let me look into this company. What are they up to here? So anyways, yeah, definitely I'd rather have her be a friend than a foe. I guess you can say that.
I have a theory about
I think the question is, what do you think about Karp's poetry?
Okay, that's not the question. That was
AKA his shareholder letters.
Did you read them?
I do. Karp's, I've always had an opinion of him.
You're not a real fan of Karp. I know from your previous videos, you never really loved him like me and like other people, right?
Yeah.
This guy doesn't talk about numbers, stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think he's the best person to talk about the stock.
Okay, the CEO.
Correct.
Yeah, he's certainly phenomenal with his philosophy and his opinions and the way the world works and all these sorts of things. And I think he does capture a lot of people's attention in mindsets, and I think that is a beautiful thing. Yeah, and I think that's good. But at the same time, sometimes I want to hear about what's the company up to, and not these big subject things about Russia and Ukraine and all this
freedom
these different subjects. So go ahead.
Let me do two quick super chats. Michael Lau bought Tesla February 2016 at $164, $11 today. If you were talking about it, I would search and sort by new daily. Found one channel and sub to financial education to support the little guy at the time.
Appreciate
Thank you, Michael Lau, for that. That's awesome. Yeah, that's your impact, Jeremy. And Ryan, Jeremy, I've been following you guys. I have a nice Palantir shirt and Meta shirt I want to give you as a gift. Please accept my gift. Thank you for that, Ryan. Now, the quarter just came. Palantir achieved GAAP profitability. The stock is up 30% in 2 days. They're going to be GAAP profitable for the rest of the year. Revenue beat 525 million versus 506 million. What are your raw thoughts on the earnings we just saw, and why do you think there is some momentum behind the stock in the past couple of days?
Wait, before we get into that, Carlos, I got to know, you had some conspiracy theory you said you were getting into or something. What was that all about in regards to Cathie Wood and Palantir?
No, with Cathie Wood, I was going to say, I have a theory about Cathie Wood, that she was able to relatively fly under the radar, and a lot of her success was a lot of her picks. She was really successful because she was able to fly under the radar. But once she became like the most successful investor and ARK had all of this attention, I almost felt like there was a financial attack on her fund. Mm-hmm. And so now she needs to have these inflows come in. So this was back to why did she sell Palantir? Well, because she needs to have inflows come into her fund. But if people are selling out of stocks that she's saying are long-term plays, she cannot expect the people that want returns on the short term to stick with her. And so I think this is a problem that she has, having a 5-year time horizon with the market looking only in front of its face 3 months. And so that was my question for you, is do you think that now that she has come out, right, and she's in the mainstream, do you think that this is something that she's going to navigate? And if so, how?
Yeah, I think she's going to do better this go around over this next few years, certainly than the last few years. I think, I mean, the problem was it was such a hype cycle. Obviously, Cathie Wood was kind of, one of the faces of that hype cycle and excitement cycle. A lot of money poured into ARK. She had to invest that money at really bad valuations for a lot of stocks, as we know. Growth rate slowed, that whole situation. So I think she's going to be in a better position this go round, and I think she'll likely invest smarter. And I also don't think she'll be put in nearly as bad a position, because I don't think she'll have quite the inflow she had before. And I don't think she's going to have to pay the sort of valuations, obviously, that we had to pay, at the end of 2020 and into 2021. So, but that goes into a bigger subject about the fund managers that are hot. They had trouble because eventually they get so popular and they have so much money inflow. And, that's just something that's been going on for the longest time. But so in regards to Palantir earnings, I know you asked me about that, Amit. Okay, so I mean, I was really impressed, really, really impressed. The revenue growth I was even better than I thought. I was very confident that they were going to beat on revenue, but I wasn't expecting that big of a beat. That was really impressive. So to see a company like that beat in this environment, it's a very tough environment for revenue growth. I mean, when you have Apple struggling to even grow revenues, you're in a very tough environment for growing revenue. So I was really impressed. And then obviously they're making a lot of income off of investing cash in treasuries, which is, just a kind of a beautiful thing right now. Karp's really keeping expenses in line, which I love, except for sales and marketing, which I give the okay on, because obviously we know that the main issue with Palantir has really been getting the product out there more, getting it seen, getting executives to understand it and want to sign up for it. So it seems like he's definitely aggressively spending there. So I was impressed. I was really happy with the earnings. They have a long way to go with their profitability story, in my opinion, a long way to go. But this was the quarter for the year I was most worried about, the first quarter. I'm much more confident even next quarter, and certainly much more confident in 3Q, 4Q. This was the one I was a little, boy, are they going to be, especially after the last conference call, Karp mentioning, on the last conference call, he was mentioning, he never said we're going to be profitable on a quarterly basis here on out. He said on a yearly basis. So I'm like, crap, man. Is he expecting a loss? Then as once we heard the S&P 500 inclusion details come out, and then I saw him on a few interviews, I was like, oh, okay. Like they're going to be profitable. They're good now. And so that became a little
Jeremy,
more.
You were in Tesla when the S&P 500 inclusion happened. Can you describe a little bit about what that was like when that happened? And do you think the same, obviously not the same stock price and stuff, do you think there'll be a similar thing of hedge fund managers saying, oh, we got to grab some Palantir before it gets there if they're profitable for the rest of the year?
100%. Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's a kind of an easy arbitrage for a lot of fund managers. And so they're going to look at it and they're going to say, the more Palantir gets closer to that S&P 500 inclusion, the more you're going to see money continue to inflow more and more, because then it's an easy arbitrage. You understand, once this company gets in, there's going to be a massive amount of money that has to come into Palantir. And so naturally, you get these inflows and just continued inflows into the stock as you get closer. And so if Palantir puts up another profitable quarter, that's going to be the next level for Palantir in terms of inflow and money, right? And so, yeah, I don't think the money coming into Palantir stock for the next 12 to 24 months is going to slow. I think it's just going to be it's one of the few times you see a perfect setup from a long-term and a short-term perspective. The long-term stories there that we're all excited about, us all, longs. And then you got the short-term crowd that's more focused on the next 12 months looking at this and like, ooh, S&P 500 inclusion could be coming, maybe the beginning of 2024, end of this year, maybe beginning of 2024, something like that. And so, so it's a beautiful setup. I got to say, it's probably the most attractive setup from a short and long-term perspective in the market right now, in my opinion, at least that I know of. So
I think I want to point out that Tesla, well, it ran up. Me and Carlos were watching it. We're investors for a long time, but I think it's lower than the S&P inclusion price right now.
We have to do it.
So
you'd have to divide it by 15.
November 2020. I don't think so.
No, yeah, it was around 500 or so, and then ran up higher. And we are under that price because there's a 3x split that we have to account for. So I think we're at 450-ish. So
right. It was.
I'm just saying that anyone who thinks the S&P is the solution to all your worries, it might not be, because I think we're under
That's
that price right now.
after almost a year.
So
and a half.
right, so you better sell if you expect to sell at some point, because that puppy may be going right back down.
Can I ask you a question that's maybe for like the person watching this 6 months from now when a lot of the short-term stuff goes away? Like, it's clear that everybody in the chat, and even us included, have looked up to you and have been watching you for a long time. Who are those people for you? Who do you watch? Who do you get on YouTube and see if homie's got a new video? Like,
and obviously, as a content creator, you are really busy, and a lot of times you don't have time to consume people. But like, I guess, who are some of your inspirations?
Yeah, so it depends on what I'm looking for at a particular time, right? If it's Palantir, I want to check out what AMIT's talking about in regards to Palantir, right? I think he's a thought leader in the space, and I look at, there was a fellow that was on kind of the Tesla train with me back in the day, and his name was Galileo Russell. He had a channel called Hyperchange, and I used to watch a lot of his content. And this is back then; it was like pretty much only him and me that were kind of like bigger YouTubers making Tesla content. And so he was somebody that was like nice to have an ally out there, and somebody that could, was really into the stock. That was nice. And so I look at AMIT kind of like that in the Palantir wave of just like somebody that's always on top of everything, every little detail he's going to cover, and that's cool. Now, obviously on my younger years, Warren Buffett, like he was the first person, like, oh my gosh, I would search everything on YouTube, Warren Buffett interview, Warren Buffett, speech, like watch these different things back from the 90s and the 80s and whatever, and even more recent stuff that was done in like 2006, 7, 8, 9 back then. And so that was definitely somebody that helped me. And that's how I really got started with value investing, because I was not a growth investor at first. I didn't even start looking at growth stocks till I was in the market for many years. I was strictly the guy that was like, is it over a 20p? Not buying it. I don't care. I don't care about its growth. If it's over a 20p, I'm not buying it.
You were that type of guy? Wow.
I was 100%. Because growth investing is difficult. It's the hardest thing in the market. It really is, other than short selling. It's the hardest. That's a whole other game. Growth investing is hard because you've got to be able to predict where companies' revenues, margins, net income's likely going years out. That's not an easy thing. Analysts that are supposed to be professionals at this have trouble. And you've got to be able to look at the valuation and say, based upon where I think this company's going, I'm getting a very undervalued stock, or this is an overvalued stock, I need to stay away. It's very difficult. And it's not as simple as just like, this stock's growing, I like it a lot, I'm going to buy it. It's a little more to that game. Otherwise, you're going to get caught up into some really bad pricing on stocks. So I lost my train of thought. I was
Warren Buffett. That's one of the guys you look.
Well, it's just who are you watching? Who's your Jeremy?
Yeah. So I honestly say Buffett, because back then there was no such thing as like YouTubers and stuff like that. So like Buffett was that guy for me, where I was just like ate up everything.
Has to be a YouTuber. Sorry, has to be a YouTuber.
Yeah. I know, man. I was like, I wish, I came up in this day and age where, you have a bunch of different YouTube channels, and Twitter, like Twitter's really good for that. But and today, there's a guy I love to watch. His name's Maverick of Wall Street. He's a bear, and he's more of a perma bear. But I love him to balance me out, because it's kind of like, it's like caffeine, and then the come down of caffeine. So he's always bearish and always has a lot of bearish points. So I like to listen to that. It just keeps me grounded and keeps me on my toes as far as like the bearish side, and looking at things from glass half empty rather than half full, because I'm more optimistic. So
all right, Chris, I'm gonna let you go in 2 seconds. Let me get these 4 super chats out of the way. 1999, thanks for the Palantir streams, great conversations. 5,000 shares, DC at 837, amazing average. So thank you for that one. Scott, as a $1, thank you. You guys are great. You had a bunch of value. Palantir's been a conviction of mine, but it has to keep me convinced. $100 one day. Hopefully, Scott, thank you so much. Benjamin Murphy, $20. Thank you for all the value you're providing. I listen to each of you, and I'm inspired to find some friends that like to talk finance and investments. Awesome collab tonight. Jeremy, I just joined your Discord a week ago. Awesome, Benjamin. Thank you for doing that. And again, it's just guys on the internet talking finance, which kind of becomes a family for a lot of people, which is super, super fun. The super chat we have,
ladies, thank you very much.
And ladies,
equal opportunity. Women can lose money too.
Rumor is there's more ladies on the chat tonight. I don't know why that is, but the
Oh,
rumor.
man.
I don't know why that is. I don't know why.
Tickle my pickle.
Abraham, $10
shoot your
12
shots tonight,
Palantir holder.
guys.
Does the comment from the Jeffries analyst about the SPAC pull forward in revenue not concern you at all? So this is a deeper question. So I will answer that in the comments, Abraham. I'll literally write my answer in the comments because we got limited time. So we got to go from there. Chris, go ahead on your question, and then we'll get to this SoFi take from you, Jeremy. Go ahead, Chris.
So I'm sure that if you follow Buffett, you're definitely going to be following Howard Marks. I think Howard Marks like breaks down the economic cycle really well into like when things gets a little hot, when things are because one of the things is he is like me. I look at the credit markets a lot more than the stock markets, because I think the credit markets kind of like are a little bit of a crystal ball on where things are going to go. So right now you're starting to see where the bond, like right now you look at bond yields, right? After this whole thing that happened with CPI, you're starting to see bond yields start to come down because a lot more people are like, okay, yeah, we're definitely going to have some cuts. So I think if you're trying to do some crystal ball like math and like, okay, where is the economy headed? And then how do I adjust my portfolio to like match that? I always find that the bond guys know a little bit more. So like guys like Howard Marks are like amazing, especially like Howard Marks's memos. Like if anyone doesn't know Howard Marks, please, by all means. And I'm sure, Jeremy, have you ever read anything by Howard Marks, like in the memos or in the books?
I've certainly heard about him and seen a few things, but not like a Buffett type situation. But.
Yeah. Yeah. So for me, it's Howard Marks. I would say if you have the time, you would really like it. Check it out and you'll be impressed. You'll be impressed.
Okay, quick take, Jeremy. I know we got like maybe 5 or 6 minutes left with you. So quick take on SoFi.
Okay, yeah. By the way, Peter Lynch too. I love Peter Lynch. I got to make sure I give him a shout out.
Balls, yeah.
Yeah, he has some great old clips of him from like the 80s and 90s.
Your angry grandfather just like yells at you, right?
Yeah, he honestly might be better than Buffett at actually talking to retail investors and like giving practical tips. He's an amazing guy. So SoFi, I've been kind of impressed with SoFi in terms of what they've been building. But I haven't been able to clearly see the light at the end of the tunnel in terms of, am I getting the stock for a very undervalued valuation, or is this just a glorified bank? And that's really, that's tied up into like, oh, we're tech, but we're just a big bank. So that's why I haven't been able to buy that one. Palantir, I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. I can see how they get to major profitability. Tesla, obviously, I was able to see that. I can't see it with SoFi, and it doesn't mean it's not there. It's just, you're not going to be able to see everything. So maybe I'm missing it with SoFi. If any of you guys want to pitch me SoFi, you can keep.
No, don't worry. We're not we're not on this pod.
You should watch SoFi Weekly. They break it down.
It's junk.
We spend some time trying to figure out how to justify it.
I
Okay.
owe him, by the way, so I can say that as a share.
One last super chat, then we're doing the giveaway that's going to include you, Jeremy. Great pod, guys. Thank you, Dat Nguyen, for $5.
That's Nguyen.
Nguyen.
One of my best buddies, Duke Nguyen.
Oh, that's
You don't
your
say the
English
G.
guy?
It's new. I think it's Nguyen. You don't say the G. That's how the Vietnamese
All
say it,
right,
right?
I'll ask
Nguyen.
my buddy.
Yeah.
I've known him since elementary school.
Jeremy, would you buy Tesla at 160 or Amazon at 110 right now if you had to pick?
Ooh, that's tough. Boy, if I didn't already have a big position in Tesla, I might be inclined to actually buy Tesla over Amazon. But with that being said, I'm buying Amazon because I already have my position, and obviously, a pretty substantial position in Tesla already.